Let me tell you about the invisible work trap and why it's quietly destroying your career right now. You're excellent at your job. You deliver complex projects on time. You solve problems nobody else can touch. Your work is genuinely impressive. And yet last month, someone with half your skills and twice your volume just got promoted to the role you deserved. Here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Competence without visibility is just expensive labor. A viewer who spent 20 years in the C-suite recently told me something brutal. She said she's watched true dummies reach executive levels purely because of relationships, while brilliant workers stayed stuck because nobody upstairs knew their names. Your technical excellence is table stakes. It gets you nothing except more work. Here's the formula executives actually use, and it has almost nothing to do with your quarterly metrics. One top-rated comment nailed it. It's about relationships. Do they feel connected to you? Do they like you? Can they relate to you? Do they trust you? If yes, you proceed. Your work should be commendable, sure, but the relationship part outweighs your abilities. This isn't about being fake or playing politics. This is about basic human psychology. Executives promote people they know, trust, and can imagine in the room when decisions get made. If you're invisible in meetings, if your wins are silent, if nobody upstairs associates your face with business outcomes, your competence is professionally irrelevant. You're the strongest mule carrying the most weight, and guess what mules get? More weight. The invisible work-death spiral works like this. You do excellent work, but you don't present it strategically, so nobody in power notices. Because nobody notices, you don't get promoted. Because you don't get promoted, you assume you need to work even harder to prove yourself. So you take on more projects, deliver more results, and become even more invisible because you're too buried to show up strategically. Meanwhile, someone less competent but more visible is in every leadership meeting, speaking up confidently, associating themselves with outcomes, and building relationships. A viewer wrote that executives should come to you with business problems, not data requests. If they're asking you for spreadsheets, you've already lost. You're the order taker, not the strategist. That's the signal you're trapped. Here's the contrarian truth that changes everything. Executive presence is not a personality trait you either have or don't have. It's a completely learnable skill with specific techniques you can practice tomorrow. One viewer listed the 3 things executives actually look for: understanding of finance, pattern recognition, and discernment. Notice what's not on that list. Being naturally charismatic, being an extrovert, being the loudest person in the room. A former amateur boxer commented that just knowing he could physically handle everyone in the room helped his confidence, which is hilarious but reveals something real. Confidence comes from competence in a specific domain. You don't need to become a different person. You need to learn the specific language, structure, and presence patterns that signal strategic thinking. It's a formula, not a personality transplant. So what do executives actually look for when you present? A viewer who presents to Amazon leadership constantly got it exactly right. Executives want concise purpose, with specific resources, resulting in specific impact numbers. Fewest possible words, most possible surgical impact metrics. They're not looking for comprehensive explanations. They're looking for proof you understand how business outcomes connect to resource decisions. When you walk into a room and lead with context, background, methodology, and process details, you're screaming junior level. You're showing you think the work itself is impressive. Executives don't care about the work. They care whether the work moved a number that matters to the business. Can you connect your project to revenue, cost savings, customer retention, or strategic positioning? If not, you're presenting activity, not impact. Let's talk about the fatal mistakes juniors make in every single meeting and why they destroy your credibility instantly. First, you wait until you're completely certain before speaking, so you rarely speak at all. Second, when you do speak, you apologize or hedge. This might be wrong, but I'm not sure if this makes sense, just my opinion. Third, you ask permission to share ideas instead of simply sharing them. Can I add something here? Fourth, you focus on problems without bringing solutions. And fifth, you present information without interpretation. You say, here's the data, instead of here's what the data means for our strategy. A top comment nailed it. Explain first, then get to the point is wrong. Get to the point first, then explain. That one reversal changes how every executive perceives your strategic capability. The one-slide rule will transform how executives perceive you overnight. If you can't explain your recommendation, the business impact, and the resource ask on one slide, you don't understand it strategically. This forces brutal clarity. It eliminates the junior instinct to show all your work, include every detail, and prove how hard you worked. Executives interpret long presentations as lack of clarity. One viewer joked about a spelling error on the first slide, which is funny but reveals the real problem. If executives are noticing typos, it means your content wasn't compelling enough to make them forget the typo existed. The one-slide rule forces you to think like an executive. What decision am I asking for? What's the financial impact? What's the risk if we don't act? That's the entire presentation. Everything else is appendix if they ask. Stop explaining first. This is the single biggest tell that separates juniors from executives, and you can fix it tomorrow. Juniors explain context, background, methodology, and process before getting to the recommendation. Executives state the recommendation first, then provide just enough context to support the decision. Here's the formula. Start with the decision you're recommending and the impact number. We should invest in X, which will generate Y revenue or save Z costs. Then explain why briefly. Then address the obvious objection. Then ask for the decision. That's it. When you explain first, you're communicating I need you to understand my journey before I ask you to trust my conclusion. When you recommend first, you're communicating I've done the thinking, here's the answer, let me show you why it's right. One is junior, one is executive. The 3-minute structure formula works in meetings, presentations, emails, and Slack messages. It's universal and it signals strategic thinking instantly. First 30 seconds. State your recommendation and the business impact number. Next 60 seconds. Explain the 2 or 3 reasons why this is the right move, focusing on business outcomes, not process. Next 60 seconds. Address the most obvious objection or risk and explain how you've mitigated it. Final 30 seconds. Make the ask, state the decision you need and the timeline. That's 3 minutes. A viewer who works at Amazon confirmed this exact structure. Another viewer realized they're failing at this if executives come to them with data requests instead of business problems. If you use this formula consistently, within weeks executives start treating you differently. They start inviting you to strategic conversations because you've proven you think in outcomes, not activities. Making your wins visible without bragging is the skill nobody teaches you, but it's completely learnable. The mistake is thinking you have 2 options. Stay silent and hope someone notices, or awkwardly announce your accomplishments. There's a third path. Connect your work to business outcomes in public forums. Instead of saying, I finished the migration project, say the migration project is complete, which means we've reduced infrastructure costs by 15% annually and improved page load speed by 40%, directly impacting our conversion rate goal. See the difference? You're not bragging, you're reporting business outcomes. You can do this in stand-ups, emails, Slack updates, and meetings. The formula is outcome first, your work second. This helped us achieve X becomes visible contribution. I worked really hard on X becomes invisible noise that sounds like bragging. The tomorrow morning 3-minute change anyone can make starts with your next meeting. Before the meeting, identify one business outcome you can connect to, even tangentially. When the moment comes, instead of staying silent or asking permission to speak, make one clear statement using the formula. Here's what I recommend, here's the impact, here's why. That's it. 30 seconds maximum. You're not trying to dominate the conversation. You're practicing the executive presence pattern. Even if your point isn't revolutionary, you're training yourself and training the room to see you as someone who thinks in recommendations and impacts, not someone who waits to be asked for data. Do this once per meeting, every meeting for 2 weeks. You'll notice executives start making eye contact with you when topics in your domain come up. That's visibility. That's the beginning of relationships. That's how you escape the invisible work trap. Be the strategist, not the mule. A viewer learned this in their late 20s. The people who make the most money do the least amount of work. That sounds cynical until you understand what it actually means. It's not about being lazy. It's about understanding that executives are paid to make decisions and build relationships, not to execute tasks. If you want to move up, you need to shift your identity from "I'm valuable because I execute perfectly" to "I'm valuable because I identify what matters and make it happen through others." Your deep work competence is the foundation, but it can't be your ceiling. Starting tomorrow, spend 3 minutes before every meeting identifying the business outcome you'll connect to. Use the formula: recommendation first, impact number, brief why, ask for decision. Make your wins visible by reporting outcomes, not activities. And remember, executive presence isn't who you are, it's a skill you practice. The room is waiting for you to show up.